Hello and welcome to the seventh annual issue launch for Iron City Magazine. My name is Jess Fletcher and I am the Operations Director for ICM, Iron City, and I will be your MC for this webinar event today. And before we begin, I'm going to review some housekeeping. This event will include some readings and art displays from contributors to the magazine. It is scheduled to be about 90 minutes of content and then some additional time at the very end for some questions to our panelists, a Q&A. We do have 4 main presentations. Our chat will be monitored by our facilitators, Jackie Aguilar and Lana Musa. And you can direct your questions to them during the event. And then keep in mind any questions that you have for the contributors will be posed at the very end during the Q&A. We also will have our Iron City Magazine at gmail.com email address monitored throughout if there's any questions for technology. While I cannot see you all during the webinar, those who are attending, we encourage you to interact throughout. So you can use that chat function to really cheer on the presenters. Many of them are able to see that throughout too. Please note that this event is being recorded and will be posted on our social media and website. The free electronic version of issue 7 will be available to view online tomorrow, Sunday, December 4th, around 5 p.m., and that'll be Arizona Mountain Standard Time. Hard copies of the issue will not be available for a few weeks. We'll be sending it to print here very shortly, and so you can expect to see that in mid-January of 2023. Anybody who did already purchase a pre-ordered copy, please be sure that you included your shipping address in the Eventbrite ticket, and then we will be sending out the copies and again around that same time frame. If there's any changes, we will keep you updated with the email address you have on file, and you're always welcome to check out our social media as well for any updates on that for shipping and production timeline. So a little bit about us. For those of you who do not know, Iron City Magazine is an online and print literary journal devoted to writing and art from the prison world. We publish art, fiction, creative, nonfiction, poetry, and interviews from individuals who are currently incarcerated, previously incarcerated, or affected by incarceration, such as family members, volunteers, and correctional staff. Submissions from individuals who are currently incarcerated or were previously may submit in any genre or theme, and we receive anything from speculative fiction to creation myths to spoken word. Submissions from those who do not have a direct experience with incarceration are required to stay to the theme of incarceration. We have been publishing 1 issue annually and are open to submissions all year long. We will talk a little bit more about some exciting announcements for the magazine and submissions here shortly. Additionally, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and all donations and the journal proceeds go directly back into production. I'd like to thank our generous grant donor, AZ Humanities, who helped make this issue possible. We're also so grateful to all our volunteers on the masthead, including our fiction editors, Jeff Kronenfeld and Sophia McGovern, our nonfiction editors, Aubrey Spivey and Chris Chirilla, our interview editor, Tamar Jacobs, who also served in supporting the creative nonfiction team this issue, our poetry editors, Jacqueline Balderrama and Brian Asdell. This year's art director was Jacqueline Aguilar, with assistance from David and Corey Wells, our submissions manager, Lana Musa, our associate editor, Winter Roth, our managing editor, Jackie Aguilar, and our executive director, founder, and editor-in-chief, Dr. Cornelia Corey Wells. This magazine was started about 7 years ago by our founders, Natalie Volin and Cornelia Wells, who began the project as part of Nat's Barrett Honors Thesis at Arizona State University. Jacqueline Balderrama and I actually joined the project that same semester, with Jackie B as our poetry editor and me as one of the fiction editors. And so we've now grown into this masthead of dedicated editors from various backgrounds. We've also seen our community network grow as contributors have chosen to keep in contact and share just more updates along their professional and creative journeys. I'm so proud of our team and our contributors for making of this issue. It's been a completely volunteer-based production for 7 years, and I cannot thank our editors enough for the time and dedication that they put into this project. It's been a true pleasure to witness the magazine flourish from this honors thesis and into a reputable publication. We've had the opportunity to connect with other organizations such as the Justice Arts Coalition, Project Paint, and more recently, Arizona State University's Poetry for the People chapter. We partnered with Poetry for the People this past year to publicize a free poetry workshop for those who've been previously incarcerated. And as many of you tuning in know, the arts world provides refuge, but also propels change and advocacy. And so we're so grateful to be part of the same community and to work with collaborating organizations like them. Our amount of submissions has exponentially increased over the years. And with that, and the vision of this magazine, our leadership of team of founders, myself included, have done some soul searching and brainstorming on how can we support ourselves and this magazine's expansion. I'm delighted to announce that we have collaborated with the Institute for Leadership Education, Advancement and Development, also known as ILEAD, which is a nonprofit organization that aims to liberate human potential and challenge communities by supporting access to higher education. The organization has successfully launched programs since 1995 and also supports their subsidiaries such as Arch Street Press, which published the memoir of one of our frequent contributors, Ward Allen Yount. We are so grateful to now become a subsidiary of ILEAD this upcoming year in 2023, and we will be transferring leadership to their lovely editor, Ann Black, who you will hear from shortly. With this change, we hope to see the magazine evolve even more in terms of its publication potential and reach in the community. Part of this change also includes some goodbyes, as our editor-in-chief, Corey Wells, our managing editor, Jackie Aguilar, and myself, we will all be stepping back from our leadership roles after this issue. As part of this launch, we would like to share a few words, each reading from our editor letters that will be featured in this issue. To kick it off, I would like to invite the woman herself, Dr. Cornelia Wells.
Thank you, Jess. Why Iron City Magazine? Creative expressions by and for the incarcerated. Because I was lucky, certainly blessed, to work, though mostly long distance, with incarcerated writers and artists at the Penitentiary of New Mexico in Santa Fe. Because an inspired full-time educator there, Michelle Ribeiro, initiated the Pen Project for her students inside and invited Arizona State University in Tempe to help direct it. Because her colleague, Leah Weed, continues the Pen Project in her wake. Because it seemed silly to spend so much time cultivating so many valuable voices without providing a venue to amplify them for others to partake of. Because a dedicated and compassionate ASU honor student, Natalie Volin, devoted eons of time to help me envision and create this nonprofit journal. Because caring and talented ASU student interns kept the Pen Project alive for 9 years and helped expand it to incarcerated writers and artists in Arizona until, separately and for undisclosed reasons, ASU Tempe and the Arizona Department of Corrections withdrew their support for this inspired and inspiring work a year prior to COVID. Because by then, Iron City had sprouted wings, and writers and artists as far as Australia have submitted their work to the magazine. Because this work is life-changing for those who submit their creations to Iron City and for the all-volunteer staff who bring the magazine together. Because Changemakers Central at ASU, a funding source for innovative student projects, funded our first 2 issues. Because the IBIS Foundation of Arizona supported us with Sea Grant money 2 years in a row. Because Arizona Humanities has supported Iron City with generous grants for the last 4 issues. Because a friend of a friend hooked us up with Laura Pachenko, founding director of Project Paint, an inside prison arts program in Southern California, and because Project Paint has submitted a lion's share of art for our most recent 4 issues. Because Anne Black and her colleagues at iLead, a larger, more established nonprofit, in their generosity and vision, will continue the magazine after the new year. Because we at the helm now, through advancing age and retreating health, must limit our loads. Because, most important of all, writers and artists behind bars continue to create against dismal odds, continue to shine and enlighten from the shadows of a relegated space in society, continue to inhabit their humanity. Thank you, everyone, contributors and volunteers both, for this gratifying opportunity to work with you. It was a heart-opening journey.
Thank you so much, Corey, and thank you for your words, and to the team and to everybody here and watching this. Starting with my letter, which is in a goodbye. The cover of this issue, God's Creation by John Sink, is composed of huddled individuals in Picasso-esque shapes, staring in unison through bright patterned eyes. The artwork to me reflects the many volunteers who have come and gone but stayed a while, to contribute a part of their time and life to free and inspire expression into hands tied by consequence and misfortune. Currently and formerly incarcerated contributors have entrusted us for the past 7 years with pieces of themselves engraved in ink, lead, graphite, and paint. Our editorial team is both honored and grateful for the chance to read and see such honest and vulnerable stories. In my eyes, Iron City magazine never failed to discover the resilient and unique minds that this world often shadows through labels and walls, seeing only a number instead of a human being. We at Iron City found humanity and grace in submissions that flooded in like hands, waving I am here. For the past 5 years, I have not been able to look away from those waving hands. They have become part of who I am. Though I am moving on, I won't forget to wave back. I, like the rest of the Iron City team, am passing down this magazine to another huddle caught by the sight of this magazine's spark, a new group of people who will continue to spread the stories of incarceration and hope. We are a community of storytellers and humanitarians, striving to listen and witness. Nothing is without reason, and nothing grows on its own, and everything lives a spark of hope. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you again, Jackie. Right. Okay. So as I said before, my name is Jess, and I will be reading my letter next. My therapist told me that one of the greatest tasks of being human is mastering the art of grief. She said, we are perpetual mourners in life. I sat stunned and thought defiantly, I refuse to cry again. My face was already wet. Our beliefs about death, change, endings, goodbyes, loss, sadness, and disappointment inform how we grieve. Some of us interact with grief as though we were watching a horror movie through splayed fingers and squinted eyes, holding on to any semblance of control, some perception of protection. Some of us pretend that the grief isn't there, and some of us are so used to its horror, we are desensitized to what has become mundane and matter of fact. Collectively, we are grieving much in the world right now, and it seems as if just as we begin to catch our breath, another tidal wave comes. While I don't believe in silver linings, I do believe in meaning making, connection, and transformation. I do believe that the world of art and creative writing allows us to tap into the most beautiful parts and the ugliest parts of our shared humanity. I believe that empathy will save us, and I believe that choosing to interact with our grief with intention is transformative. I deeply respect not only all the contributors published in the pages of this issue, but all of the artists and writers who have ever taken the chance to submit and share their work with us. In my capacity with Iron City over the past 7 years, I have felt honored and privileged to bear witness to the stories and creative expressions of those affected by incarceration, to those who are no strangers to grief and loss. to those willing to engage with all of their humanity and to share it with others. Having been part of the magazine since its birth, I am now saying goodbye as I step back from my role. I'm eager to see how the magazine transforms, grows, and expands beyond its original vision. With any change, even timely goodbyes, comes loss, and I mourn knowing that I have been part of something worth missing. Thank you to all the contributors who have shared your meaning making, your craft, and your feedback. Thank you to all the volunteers who have brought this vision into reality. Thank you to Corey and Nat, who invited me to join this journey from the very, very beginning. And with gratitude, I am saying goodbye. All right, so now taking a pause after reading our letters, I again am just so grateful to be able to introduce and have you all get to meet Anne Black, who is she is the managing editor of Arch Street Press, as well as a vice president of iLead, who will be taking over leadership and joining our magazine. And we're so, so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I just want to say how moved I am by all of your letters. Really deeply moved. So it's great. It's a great honor to be given the gift to work with Iron City in the future. And I hope that we can honor your vision for the magazine. And I just wanted to say a few words about how, so that some of your listeners can understand how we became connected with you. We met Iron City Magazine and Jess through a man who is currently serving a life sentence at in the Arizona State Prison System. And just by some strange fluke, his memoir manuscript ended up on my desk. And we worked with Ward, we worked with his memoir, we published it. It's called And Promise in Life. And through Ward, I met Jess and the magazine, and we stayed in touch. We did a few things together, and we're just thrilled that Jess and the rest of the team thought of us and thought that we might be worthy to continue your good work in the world. So that's all I have to say for right now.
Thank you so much, Anne. All right. So with that, everyone stay tuned and to get to see the next big exciting things from Iron City in 2023. Now, moving forward, we will get to hear from some fantastic presentations today. I'm really, really ecstatic to share with you all. Our first presentation will be an art display and a reading from one of our contributors, James Terrence Shelby. James is a formerly incarcerated writer, visual artist, and aspiring musician. He holds a PhD in Hungarian studies from Indiana University and lives and works in Tucson, Arizona as a freelance legal researcher. His creative nonfiction writing and drawings were featured in issue 6 of Iron City magazine, and his charcoal nudes have been exhibited at Solar Culture Gallery in Tucson. His post-incarceration artwork relies primarily on mugshot reference photos to create deliberately distorted and emotionally expressive pen and ink portraits of fellow inmates. James, we're so excited to have you here. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and begin with sharing your reading. And then afterwards, we'll have your art display.
Great. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jess. I appreciate your letters, and I appreciate your work. And my involvement with the magazine started in 2017 when I was at Globe Unit, and Dr. Wells came and visited and did a workshop. And so it's a wonderful thing to be here now, to be able to read some writing that came out of that process. So I'm going to read a piece. I guess this is going to be published in the current issue of Iron City magazine. Requiescat in pace, rest in peace. And this piece was actually written about another person who I grew up with. And it started as a longer piece that I kind of distilled down into one composite person. And so here it goes. It's not too long. So I found out that he died while I was in prison. Often homeless and frequently incarcerated. I picture him sitting somewhere random, like a field of dead grass or in an abandoned dirt lot, or maybe in the middle of a pair of railroad tracks. Like a friend went out and found him wherever he could be and put a bottle of beer in his hands. Don't quit now. His voice registered somewhere between a groan and a slur. I always felt a little queasy after hearing him speak. And then there was his face. 44 years of self-destruction, nose broken and rebroken and broken again. Half his teeth missing, the left half. They say he got tuberculosis in prison and that he died. I don't know if it's the tuberculosis that finally got him or some other disease, or maybe he just OD'd or lost one too many fights. I'm sure someone somewhere knows how he actually died, but I don't want to know. I prefer not knowing. He never backed down from a fight, but he was always outmatched. He earned his flattened nose the hard way. Stand up and slap the chessboard off the table. Fuck your checkmate. He was like that. Couldn't help it. I don't know if he was actually a decent human being or if he was just a piece of shit he seemed to be. The art of self-destruction involves endless sacrifice, and propriety is the first victim. Then it's morality, and in the end it's you yourself, your body that has to go. But along the way he got to experience things the rest of us never do, like deliberately and repeatedly driving his car off a cliff. Did he change his mind on the way down? I don't think he did. And what shape did his death take? An apologetic friend who said it was time to leave? Or something else, something simpler, like the flashing wings of a bird, or the smell of mint leaves, or something important, like forgiveness, or forgotten grief, or the taste of something so sweet and so bitter that you know it has to be true, like saying goodbye forever. But I don't really know what it meant to him or means to me, except that now he's gone and that I hope he can finally rest in peace. So that was something I wrote about two different people, and it kind of, through it, the editing process got distilled down to one person. So I'm not sure if it still qualifies as creative nonfiction, but the parts of it are true. And I wanted to say I had the good fortune of being housed with Count at each unit in Florence for a number of months in 2017, and Ward was, he's in there, he's serving a natural life sentence, and yet his creativity doesn't stop. He's a beautiful musician, got a beautiful singing voice, great writer. He's always teaching peer education classes, encouraging other people. And so I'm really glad you were able to give him a voice and publish his work. So maybe Jess, could we show some of my drawings, and maybe I could talk about the artwork.
Absolutely. One moment while I pull that up to begin sharing. All right.
Okay, so uh, I'm 52 now. 44. I ended up defending a criminal case, and I was facing 76 years in prison originally. So I bonded out, and for almost 2 years, I was out on bond under really an incredible amount of stress, fearing prison and what was coming. And so I started drawing again. Drawing was something I did as a child and quit at the age of 15. So 30 years later, I picked it up again. And what you're looking at here is a reference photo, a photo I took of myself. And I put it in grayscale, and then a drawing I did based on that reference photo. It's using a Bic felt tip pen and a technique called cross-hatching. So Jess, maybe we could move on to another slide. Okay, here's one where I combined, this is what I call a mugshot portrait, meaning this is a portrait of a friend named Michael, who I was incarcerated with, and it actually doesn't look a whole lot like Michael, but I like the way it came out anyhow. And so this is in a combination of blending and cross-hatching and graphite. And what I do is I take the reference photo and I turn it upside down. And so really when I'm drawing, I can't tell if the drawing's going to be successful or not. And I'm just kind of going through piece by piece, upside down. And often what results is some distortion in either good ways or bad ways. The bad ones I throw out, the good ones I keep. I like this one. Didn't quite look like Michael, but looks like someone. So maybe we can go on to the next one. So this was before, the portrait I just showed of Michael was something I did after I got out of prison in 2019. And it's a little bit looser. This is a portrait of my aunt, Mary Therese. I did this before I went to prison when I was on bond. And this is something I don't think I'll ever be able to repeat. It's just the level of concentration and detail in it. I just can't work that way anymore. I think my brain would explode. So, okay, next. These were some of the things I did when I first started were some still lifes, and I would just be sitting at a coffee shop with my headphones on and put an object in front of me. So I didn't use a reference photo for this. This was just a plastic cup. And next. This was an interesting one. This was published in last year's issue of Iron City magazine. I titled it Channel Changer because it's, when I was growing up, we didn't have a TV until I won one in I think a walkathon. And so that's what we had for many years, was a little black and white TV that lost the channel changer knob was lost. And so to this day in my family, if I ask someone where the channel changers are, they'll know that I'm talking about a pair of pliers. And so this was that pair of pliers. I just put them down on a piece of paper at a coffee shop and sketched them. Next. Similar, just a dumbbell, sketched it. Next. think this was maybe the first drawing I did after I started it again. First still life. Just a coffee cup, maybe an espresso cup and a saucer. This was in compressed charcoal, and I didn't use a reference photo. I just sat there, looked at it. Next. This is I think this is the first instance of cross-hatching I did. I did after I got out of prison in 2019. This is my little brother, Kim. He's not that little anymore. He's in his 40s. I think I used a reference photo from his childhood, so maybe he was something like 6 or 7 here. But yeah, he's a great subject. Next. Okay. This is another mugshot photo, and this really does look like the subject. This was Chunk. Chunk was my first bunkmate. When I first went to prison, I ended up at a Steiner unit in Buckeye, Arizona, Lewis Complex. And it was a very scary place for me to be. It wasn't a safe yard, or stabbings there frequently, and yet I had this bunkmate who was he was just a character. I mean, he looked young kid. I think he was maybe 19 at the time. This mugshot photo is from later years after he served a number of years in prison. But he kind of struck me. He had a real charisma to him. He was kind of like a blonde Elvis with some threat to it also. So we haven't stayed in touch, but sadly he's got a list of mugshots that are still up. So I know he's still in the system. Next. This is someone I was incarcerated with, a really good guy. And he's a lot more handsome than this drawing would suggest. But I liked, this was of course one of the mugshot photos that I turned the reference photo upside down, and a lot of distortion came out of it. And I felt like the distortion captured a lot of his sadness. He's a father, and he's a good father, and you can imagine how hard it is to be a good father while you're locked in prison. So I felt like some of that sadness that I see in him got captured in the photo. And next. This is my friend Ed. This is also surprisingly a mugshot photo. How many people smile for their mugshots? Not many. But Ed did, and Ed was a wonderful person to spend time with. He, like me, hadn't had any prior experience with prison, so it was, yeah, he's just a great guy. I spend time with him, and I'm glad he's out now. I'm doing great. So, next. These are from my time before going into prison. I was on bond. This was drawn from the object itself, a saucer on a table. And it's in compressed charcoal and chalk on gray tone paper. And next. Another similar one. These were a good place for me to start because there was really no perspective involved. They were top down. I think I actually traced the outline of the saucer onto the paper so that my circle would be roughly circular. And here's another. And next. All right. So those are some of my drawings, and I'm, you know, the artwork for me was something that initially was a way to not feel so freaked out when I was looking at so many years in prison. Because of when you're that focused drawing, there's really no space for anxiety. And then once I got into prison and came out, I was sentenced to 3 years probation. And actually, at about 19 months yesterday, I got the order that I was released from probation, which now opens up the possibility of doing prisoner outreach, which I find to be really important in terms of reframing my experience in prison so that I don't feel like it was for naught. I was very fortunate. I spent time in Buckeye, Arizona, and Florence, and Globe, Arizona, and I spent most of my time at Globe and made some good friends there. And so I'd really like to reach out to them in any way I can to support them, and that might be through kind of just simple visits, getting on their visitor lists, or maybe if it can happen, teaching some art classes through the drawing studio here in Tucson. I don't know if Jess, if you had any questions or anyone else did.
Not right now. And what I will say though is if anyone does have any questions, please keep them in mind and write them down, and encourage you to post them at the very end, and we'll actually open it up for Q&A. So thank you so much. Did you have any final thoughts before we go forward?
Well, I just want to say how encouraging the writing workshops that Dr. Wells conducted were when I was in prison. Just to have people that aren't a part of the prison system come in, donate their time, take the time to drive all the way out to Globe, risk going into a, what can sometimes be a very dangerous environment, that they would be okay. And just that trust was really touching. It really, really was just a window and a reminder that life was continuing on outside the chain link fence, and that people were receptive to our writing and weren't judgmental about whatever crimes we committed that got us there. It's really amazing. And so this journal is, coming out of prison I think it's been easier for me than many people because I've had a job to come back to and family support. But I can't say that it's been entirely easy either. Been times where it's been very difficult. And so one of the main difficulties is just owning up to, hey, yeah, I've been to prison. And so to have a chance to reframe that and say, and I've written about it and I've drawn portraits of friends in prison, it just really reframe what could have been a very, very traumatic experience into something more meaningful. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much, James, for all your words, for everything you've shared, and for all of the genuine empathy that you offer and share to the people that you know in your life too. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and be transitioning to hear from our next presenter. And then, as I mentioned just a few moments before, please keep in mind any questions you do have for the presenters for when we open it up at the very end. Our next presentation will be a poetry reading from contributor Rosemarie Dombrowski. Rosemarie is the inaugural Poet Laureate of Phoenix, Arizona, the founding editor of Rinky Dink Press, and the founding director of Revisionary Arts, a nonprofit that facilitates therapeutic poetry workshops. She's published 3 collections of poetry, including The Cleavage Plains of Southwest Minerals, a love story, winner of the 2017 Split Rock Review chapbook competition. She teaches courses on medical poetry, the poetry of witness, and radical print culture at Arizona State University. Additionally, she's the founding editor of Issued, a journal for and about veterans at ASU, and the faculty editor of Gray Matter, the medical poetry journal of the University of Arizona School of Medicine in Phoenix. Rosemarie, we're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Jess and Corey and Jackie. I didn't even know that you were going to be reading farewell letters today, so this has been that much more special and emotional for me, but I guess also thank you for including me in this issue. Most importantly, thank you for the work that you've been doing. I've known Corey and Jackie for a while, and I've loved this journal for a long time. I own every issue, actually, and I know some of them are completely out of print, so I'm a longtime fan. My friends call me RD, and yes, I'm a poetry professor, but I also run a therapeutic poetry nonprofit, and I recently completed an 8-month partnership with the Maricopa Reentry Center, which is a 90-day lockdown facility for men who have recently violated their parole. So recently released, recently violated their parole. The idea is that it's something of a therapeutic community that can help these individuals reintegrate into society. Unfortunately, it's operated by the DOC, so it's terribly flawed. And I was there every Wednesday for 8 months, working as the poetry and yoga therapist. And it was the most difficult, most beautiful, most life-changing work of my life. I feel like I lived 8 years in 8 months. And I'm still processing a lot of it. And so I'm just hoping to get through this poetic sequence without breaking down today. So thank you for creating this wonderful space for all of us. And thank you for letting me share some of the stories of some of my beautiful men. It's called At the Reentry Center. Week 1. C walks me to the gate after poetry class. He asks me if I feel it, and I do. He points and says, "A girl hung herself in that bathroom. Another one on the chain link fence. I want to wrap my arms around their ghosts and make it easy this time, but there is no such. I wouldn't be here if there was." Week 3. T's funeral is Saturday. AJ leaves for Navajo country at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Greyhound or bust. I can see the worry in his face. He doesn't know what's next, and that scares him. I stay for 5 hours today. I wrap my arms around AJ, then crawl home through traffic. Time doesn't feel the same in there. Week 5. I had to drive around a body on the I-17 this morning. His bike was at least 100 yards away, and I could see the blood pooling on the asphalt. He was surrounded by a dozen people, like a freeway prayer circle. I'd never seen anything like it. A few minutes later, I was walking toward the gate, not knowing who would be alive inside. Week 7. They're lined up at the door, nearly a dozen today. I'll never remember their names. It's impossible to start on time. Someone steps on my mat because there's no such thing as etiquette. Sometimes I forget that I have to teach them things. I forget to put up walls. C says they can be far away, But once they're crossed, they're crossed. I hear what he's saying, but I don't have an answer. Week 9. I read an excerpt from George Jackson's prison letters. This camp brings out the very best in brothers or destroys them entirely. But none are unaffected. None who leave here are normal. The classroom has never been quieter. We tour G's garden after class. We stand in the sun and talk about weed while he waters the lettuce. For a few minutes, it feels like we're living on another planet. Week 11. There's no Pepto-Bismol, no toilet paper or paper towels, no jobs and nothing to work on. No one has taken their vitals since they arrived. SK's poem is long and filled with gunfire. Only his dog, Rockstar, survives. He speaks to the ghost of his father in a Safeway parking lot. We embrace him when he finishes, try to take a sliver of his pain. No matter what I do, it never feels like enough. Thank you again for letting me share that.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the work you're doing in the community as well. Yeah. Just gonna put it out there because I love a good metaphor, as I'm sure many of you do, but it's raining right now where I'm at in Arizona, and just feels like the perfect landscape as we're, continuing to just review all of this work and the stories that are being shared. So I am delighted to introduce our next presenters. We will be hearing from one of our collaborating organizations, Project Paint. And we've been collaborating with Project Paint for several of the past issues. I'm excited to introduce Laura Pachenko, who is Project Paint's founding director, and Ruben Rodillo, who is a Project Paint teaching alum and artist, as well as a frequent contributor to Iron City Magazine. Laura will be sharing a little bit more about the organization. And Project Paint is the Prison Arts Initiative, which is a visual arts program that operates at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in California State Prison, Centinela. Ruben Rodillo also was a student at Project Paint while at Donovan State Prison, and after serving 25 years of incarceration, now not only the teaching artist, but was chosen as the cover art for Iron City Magazine issue 4. And so both of them will be presenting about the art that is featured in this issue from Project Paint participants, including some additional ones from Ruben. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the presentation, and Laura and Ruben, we are so excited to have you.
Thanks so much, Jess. We are so excited to be here today. As Jess mentioned, we've been partnering with Iron City for years, and so we'll look at the art that is published in this edition. So just a little bit about Project Paint. We are a visual arts organization. As Jess mentioned, we work in 2 state prisons, so 2 prisons operated by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We work at 5 yards across those 2 prisons, and we offer all sorts of different classes, from painting and drawing, of course, to visual storytelling. We've incorporated even 3D pens in some of the work that we do, so we can do sculpture. We've really explored a wide variety of media in our various courses. So I'll hand it over to, and I wanted to mention, we're a fiscal sponsee of the William James Association. And I will pass it over to Ruben now to talk a little bit about his cover art from a previous issue. Ruben, you're muted.
You guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to say I'm kind of really nervous. At first I wasn't, but after hearing everybody talk and that presentation that on one of the guy that did the first one on James, when he read the poem about the guy that's always outmatched, and he just, man, that hit me to the core, you know, and then the speech about Jackie, Corey, and Jesse, you know, leaving. I realized how much for granted I've taken, you know, some things in life, especially this platform that they've given us all these years, and it humbled me to where it took me mentally back to the first time where I was told the news that I was going to be on the front cover of Iron City magazine, you know. So I just want to say thank you so much for the you know, the contribution and the platform that you've given to us, and I just want to say that's you guys are so beautiful in every aspect of the word, for, you know, showing empathy and compassion for us, and allowing us to grow in so many ways, you know. So without further ado, I'll start talking about the first piece, which is inspired by a Frida Kahlo class that one of the that Katie had brought in, and she told us to, you know, to do a self-portrait of us, of the animal that we identify with, and and for me it was the sea turtle, because you know, it has a shell, you know, and just like the person that came out in the poem, you know, his odds were against him, and he's always outmatched. And I just felt like the shell, although I was outmatched on everything, I felt that my shell protected me, you know, and allowed me to, you know, and the turtle is a very powerful creature in his element. So in the sea, you know, he you know, he or she could do what they want, and in this picture, I was like, man, I could let my hair down, you know, I could just swim and be natural, you know. So I really enjoyed doing this piece, because I've always wanted to work with watercolor and project paint when they came in, and they allowed me to do that, and I kept on building up the color, and it was so thick that it was shiny, you know. I remember that, but I hated this this drawing that I did. I wanted to destroy it before turning it in. I was like, I don't want nobody to see this. For some reason, it just kind of like spooked me out, creeped me out, because it's like, man, that guy looks like he has a demonic look. But I guess you know, to some of us, you know, some of the pieces that we do, people actually like doing it, and that's the advice that I give a lot of the artists I see out here. Like, man, you turn it in, and someone's gonna love it, you know. So yeah, going on to the next piece, Travis Carter. You want to speak about that, Ms. Pacheco?
Thank you, Ruben. And yes, we told Ruben he could not throw it away, that it was such a beautiful piece. And we're so glad that it got to be shared with so many people. So this piece by Travis Carter, who often goes by Juice, is from a modern art course that we did. So this was produced this past year. We were able to go back inside. You'll see throughout our presentation today some pieces that were produced during distance learning, while we had the COVID pandemic and weren't allowed inside, and then also ones when we've now been able to go back in and do in-person programming. So in this modern art course, many of the projects were based on various artists. So we would bring in the works, some examples from a particular artist, and then the participants would create something in response to that. So in this case, this was in response to Basquiat. And now we'll look at the next one, which is in response to another artist named Maria Primachenko. So we were talking a bit about Ukraine, and she is a Ukrainian folk artist. And so you'll see a number of pieces that were based on these two prompts, whether it was Basquiat or Primachenko or other artists as well. All right, and next up, Ruben will talk a little bit about our next artist.
So the next artist, Tom Applegate, I took the pleasure of knowing this Tom really well, because we not only worked in our art class together, but we also were in welding class together and in a spiritual class as well. And this picture depicts exactly what he was about. He loved nature. He loved the stars. He loved things that were, beyond just physical. So, yeah, Tom was a very good friend of mine. He is. I haven't seen him since I got out, and I really appreciate his work. And he looks like he's been really moving in a different direction in his drawings, because he likes to draw a lot of motorcycles and a lot of mechanical things. So this is really interesting to see that he did something different that I'm used to.
Thanks, Ruben. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, talking about Tom. We did a coloring book course a few years ago, and we produced a coloring book out of it. It's called Beyond Blue, and it's available on our website. Little shout out there. But in that, he did motorcycles. That's often, very, very common imagery for him. And so in this piece, he did do something different, and he really has been exploring a lot more animal-focused drawings and paintings more recently. And so this is another example of one of the pieces that was created in response to the work of artist Maria Primachenko.
Go on to Stephen Westcott, and I've also had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with Stephen. He and in real life, this picture is perfect depiction of him. He's a clown, He likes to make people laugh. Everything that he says is just like you're just like, wow, this guy is so funny. And I didn't know this until recently, but he was in the circus. And that was his profession at one time, and it certainly surprised me. But when I was there, he was the newspaper editor, writer for the Yard, and he always made comics, and I was always interested in what he had to say, because he was witty with his words as well. So. Yes, Mr. Westcott is certainly a person that if you encounter, he's gonna make you laugh one way or the other,
Very true. So Stephen Westcott, and he also goes by Shaky, is an artist who had 4 pieces selected this time. So we'll take a look at some of his work, but you'll see this kind of imagery of clowns and circus figures come up quite a lot. So if we look at the next one, this is a page from a zine that he produced. So we often make zines in our classes. We've done either individual zines or collaborative zines where we work either in partners or with the entire class. And we often exhibit at various zine fests. So we very regularly are an exhibitor at the San Diego Zine Fest. So we had already been working on projects in class to this effect, so that we would have things to display at our table at Zine Fest back in 2019. But Shaky took it upon himself. He's made zines his entire life. And so he was so excited about this that he spent a ton of time outside of class producing this entire publication. So this is called The Chauffeur, and this is volume 1. So this was made in 2019, and he actually did a volume 2, which we displayed this past year back in October at this year's Zine Fest, also available on our website. And his work is always so amazing. As Ruben mentioned, you know, he's always thinking about how to get people to laugh, but also to think. So, you know, often his comics really kind of push you to think about major social issues. Looking at the next one, this is an update. So we did this series. So this is anxiety number 4. If we look at the next piece, actually, it's anxiety number 1. He's been producing these paintings for years, and he'll do different variations of these clowns. This one is it's a page from The Chauffeur Volume 1. And, you know, you can see it's a photocopy of the original piece. He only had a photocopy at the time that he made this scene, but he keeps producing these types of paintings. All right, we'll turn it over to Ruben again.
So next piece is the next slide is some of the work that I done with I collaborated with one of my coworkers, Lisa. She asked me to she asked me to see if I could draw some trees to warm up the guys because her lesson was about trees. And this first tree I kind of did. I wasn't sure what kind of tree that I wanted to show the guys how to draw. But the first one, when I was incarcerated, I was asked by a psychiatrist to draw a tree, and she later told me that the tree was a representation of myself. So I drew this tree, trying to make it as simple as possible so students could follow my lead. But what I really did was use drawing to depict how I was feeling at the time, because I had just got released. I was told that the ring inside in the middle, the heart, that's what it represented. It represented the heart, and when you see a ring like that drawn on a tree, that means the person is forgiving, and the thickness of the leaves represents the vitality of the person. You know, I was so happy with life because I was given the opportunity to be paroled, when in reality I still, as I talked to you guys, I still had 15 more years to complete before even being considered for parole. So I felt like my food was plentiful. I was like, man, I got so much to live for now. You know, I got my whole world in front of me. You know, and that's why I drew this kind of like really rich tree here. You know, the next slide was, you know, even though I was there and I felt like the odds were against me because of how I you know being out for the first time, I wasn't sure how society how I was going to adjust to society, although you know my plans were something that I wasn't sure. But so the twists of the tree represent that, like, man, there's going to be so many obstacles and so many twists and turns and here you don't see the whole tree being covered. It's transparent. So there's going to be a lot of sun coming through. So there was just an exposure that you will be able to see through the tree, more transparent, and the final one, final slide, this is not a simple tree. It's a tree that that's already drying up, and the harsh realities of life, it's just like you start dwindling down. It's a cycle of life, and but at the same time you see a lot of beauty. You see a lot of, man, that tree went through a lot of stuff, man, and that's what I was trying to show. But at the same time, I was trying to tell the students that it doesn't matter how you draw the tree. The tree, you could draw it any which way, and it's gonna be a tree, because a tree has its own story as well. So those are the three drawings that I contributed. And that was the meaning behind the drawings that I did with trees.
Thanks so much, Ruben. And so these were for our nature journaling course that we did through distance learning. So these were all examples that Ruben drew for the participants, and then they drew various trees in response to it on postcards. And the nature journaling class was super, super popular, and it was really amazing to see all of the nature that people started noticing through this process. Okay, passing it back to Ruben.
Okay, now we have a drawing from Gwen Randall, and I had the honor to meet Gwen, and she was a very unique individual, because I'd never seen someone so dedicated to art. You see artists, but Gwen, I just felt like she breathed art all the time. Every time I passed through the office, she was there. She was drawing. If she wasn't drawing, she was helping someone else, and that really impressed me, because I was like, wow, this is someone that loves it and so much that's what she wants to breathe. And I didn't see her draw this, but I know that the drawings that I've seen were always very colorful and very meaningful to her. So yes, this one, do you want to elaborate more on it, Ms. Pacheco?
I will. Thanks, Ruben. Yeah, so Gwen is actually the cover artist of Iron City Magazine issue 5. And as Ruben said, Gwen is so incredibly dedicated to art. We did an inside exhibition back in 2018. And so this was the first time that Donovan has ever allowed an in-prison exhibition. We brought lots of community members into the facility, and Gwen oversaw creating individual paper-made, handmade frames for every single piece. We had nearly 100 pieces of art that she created frames for. And this goes to show, her tremendous dedication to what we do, to art in general. She labeled everything. The organization was just absolutely wonderful. So Gwen is really a leader in making sure that art is accessible to people, especially at Facility E at RJD. So this is another example of a response to Maria Primachenko. In the next one, you'll see, likely you'll recognize the inspiration here. This is a response to Andy Warhol, of course. And as Ruben mentioned, Gwen loves color, loves animals, loves anime style. And so that kind of comes through, and kind of creepy as well. That's sort of a feature of a lot of her art. And she's really, really prolific. Oh, and then next up, we have Kisasi Aguilar. And so this is another example of a response to Maria Primachenko. Kisasi has been participating for years. He's done tons of different styles, but he really does tend to prefer drawing and painting. Those are his two preferred mediums. All right, next up, we have Kevin Smith, and Ruben will kick us off.
Kevin Smith, another person that I'm honored to have met, and not only were we in the project paint class together, but we had a volunteer class that about 12 volunteers would volunteer to help the lower functioning individuals inside the prison function on a daily, regular necessities, like helping them go to medical, go to class, walk around with them. But Kevin, what impressed me the most about Kevin was that he would always bring out his canvases and his sketchbook and show me what he created, and he wanted to ask me about, how he could improve or enhance what he was creating. And I thought that his work was just outstanding. I told him, just keep on doing what you're doing, man. You're doing it. You're just doing it your own style. So Kevin Smith, we got together and we talked about art all the time,
So this piece was made just before we had to stop holding in-person classes due to COVID. And so this was from our contemporary and street art class that we taught in 2019 to very early 2020. And it's based on the work of Kehinde Wiley. And the next up, we'll hear from Ruben about Jonathan Marvin.
So Jonathan Marvin, if you would see, if there was a word, the best way I could describe it is he has a lot of leadership potential, and he was a leader. And besides the class, we took on a project on painting murals outside on the walls, inside the prison walls. So we had a section in the prison where him, I, and Gwen were drawing Balboa Park, and some parts of Balboa Park on the wall, and John, besides a painter, was also a musician. He loved to play music, so he was he's just a really just person. I remember an incident where someone was being yelled at, and he stuck up for the person, even though the person who was being yelled at was also, the person that was being yelled at was a bully. Someone else started yelling at the bully, and John, because the bully couldn't protect himself verbally, he stuck up and said, "Hey, man, don't treat him like a kid," even though I felt that the bully deserved it, but John didn't, so that's the type of person John was, is. So, and then all his work, the work that he's always created was, very enticing. You see it and you're like, wow, man, that's really fascinating, I ended up buying one of his pieces when we had a gallery, sale, and we have it at the Temple because it just sold his personality, and we loved it,
Yeah, John absolutely has a very distinctive style, and his work is absolutely amazing. You'll see 8 of his pieces of art accepted here. So these first 2 are collages that we did early on in our Art and Politics distance learning course. And so this was super, super interesting. This project was based on the concept of erasure. And if we look at the next one, it's based on pandemic art. So we would provide numerous examples of pieces that are out there, and then ask the participating artists to create work in response. The next one is from our nature journaling distance learning class that I mentioned earlier. John found an actual dragonfly. It was deceased at the time that he found it. And he covered it in glitter. He put it into this shadow box. It really, it's the kind of thing that if you can see it in person, there's so much happening here. The entire outside of the box is collaged in torn up CDCR paperwork. So it really, I mean, this photo I think is already depicting how amazing it is, but there's even more and more layers to this. The next one, I think, really shows John's style. So this is a very, very common technique that he uses. He does this. So in this case, he used pen, but he often does this in paper cutouts. And they're beautiful pieces. Many of them are very, very large. They're incredibly intricate. But this is, again, an example of one of the nature journaling postcards that we did. This was to the, or based on the topic of insects. All right, next up is early on in our nature journaling class, we combined really drawing nature with bookmaking. So you'll see here that we looked at different bookmaking techniques and had participants work on bookmaking as part of the course, and then also do drawings on the books that they created. The next three are all from our in-person modern art course that we have been able to do more recently. So these are all from 2022. And this first one is John's response to Primachenko. The next one is his response to, we showed them Cezanne fruit bowl drawings or paintings, and I had them respond to that using watercolor. And then the final one is another example of a response to Basquiat. Okay. And then, so to wrap this up, we just wanted to let you know how you can contact us. Please stay in touch. We'd love to hear from anyone here. We are on Instagram and Twitter at project_paint. Our website also has information about our program, how to contact us. We can be reached. You'll see this on the website too, but info@projectpaint.org. We have, I think you saw some posting here by Jackie. We have a Shopify site. You can access that through our website. And we will soon be launching a GoFundMe fundraising end of the year giving campaign. And thank you so much. We're just so thankful to have gotten to partner with Iron City for these past 4 years and look forward to the future. So thank you.
Thank you both as well. Again, Laura and Ruben. Okay, so we have one more final presentation for you all today, and then we'll wrap up at the very end here. Our final presentation is from our very own Iron City Magazine fiction editor, Jeff Kronenfeld. And so I am delighted to introduce him. I have been working with Jeff over the past 4 issues. He is an integral part of the magazine. We were together fiction editors in the past. And it just does incredible work for the community as well. And we're so grateful to have him. And you can see some of his work in past issues, including some that he'll be presenting and showing today. A little bit about Jeff. Jeff is a freelance journalist, author, and screenwriter based out of Tempe, Arizona. His articles have been published in Discover Magazine, Vice, NewsBreak, the Phoenix News Times, and many other outlets. His scripts have been produced by WatchMojo, and his fiction is featured in So It Goes, the Journal of the Kurt Vonnegut Memorial Library, 4 Chambers Press, Ripples in Space, a Sci-Fi Journal, and others. And so, Jeff, we are excited to have you.
Thank you for the introduction, Jess. We're probably going to stay on this front graphic for like my little preamble thing, and then we'll start going through the next slides when I finish that, and I'll give you a little signal. So thank you for running that. Yeah, I've worked with Iron City a long time. I don't even know the exact year, but it was I took a class with Corey, like pretty fresh out of prison, actually, and she just happened to be running it. So it was just a weird, very convenient coincidence for me, because she was a great person to hook up and just really helped me a lot with a lot of stuff. So was when everyone was giving their little exit speech, it was definitely I don't know, just had me in my feels. So but just thank you, Jess and Corey and Jackie and all. Yeah, for all the work on over the years. And I was really glad, to hear that someone else was able to come in. So thank you for that, because that was also kind of pretty sad to think about it kind of going fallow. Anyways, I'm going to get into my little presentation. So basically, Dog Years is a graphic novel that follows a character named Kurt Vonnegut, who's kind of a loose fictional stand-in for yours truly, through a 2-year prison sentence where he faces violent gangs, sadistic guards, and the demons of his past. That's just like a little blurb. It was kind of inspired by Art Spiegelman and Mouse, and the way he drew from personal experience, and then also the use of anthropomorphic animals. In Dog Years, it's anthropomorphic dogs. And in the end, I guess, spoiler alert, all the inmates you've seen as dogs, you didn't see them as people in the last panel. But we won't be seeing that today, because that's actually the one thing that's still getting drawn right now. I originally conceived of the idea as an 112-page graphic novel that would be published in 4 issues of 28 pages each. The first issue would deal with Kurt's childhood and his first arrest. The second, his life as a cannabis grower and dealer, ending with him getting arrested and going to prison. The third would be his experiences in prison, and the fourth would be his struggles post-prison, getting out, that was kind of the whole point of the project, was to get to that, because I always felt like that stuff, it's kind of not very accurately depicted in media that you see. Late last year, I was awarded a research and development grant from the Arizona Commission on the Arts to bring a single issue of the project to life. And for that, I partnered with Russ Kazmarziak, a Phoenix-based illustrator, artist, writer, and performer. And he has worked with me throughout the project, not only on those first 5 pages that I'm going to show you all today, but also the complete 32-page comic, which is going to be coming out in a few weeks. Russ also runs his own comic series called Amazing Arizona Comics, which I just wanted to give a quick shout out to. So since the grant only covered 1 issue, I ended up completely rewriting the story and kind of changing its scope and focus, just because I wanted to tell a complete story rather than just, part of a story that might never get complete. And also, we wouldn't have had any of the prison stuff in there, actually, if it was just the first issue. So I ended up redoing it and kind of combining what would have been the 3rd issue, the prison stuff, with the 2nd issue, which is sort of the crime biography. I don't know, there's probably a better word for that. And sort of I combine them and intersplice them as 2 parallel timelines that you kind of flash between. And then the flashback is whenever Kurt's writing, and it's kind of writing's a really important theme throughout it, and as well as art's work and the value of that in prisons and such. And so what I'm going to share you is actually a 5-page mock-up for this grant proposal we put together. And it's the first 5 pages of the original, what would have been a 112-page thing. And then I'm going to also share 5 pages that aren't totally complete. The art that I'm sharing you with, they won't have any lettering or anything, from the actual 32-page comic that'll be coming in a couple weeks. Pencil, the rest are inks, I think. And then that's show you kind of that, and they're very different. You can kind of see the divergence of the projects. And so without further ado, Jess, if you could slide us over to the next visual. So that's the first page of the original 5. I'm not necessarily going to read it. I'd let folks read it itself, but this one's not too complicated. And maybe we can move to the next page. So yeah, so this is so that was obviously Kurt getting to prison. This is like Kurt after prison. It kind of jumped between some of the different timelines. It was meant to kind of parallel that. I don't know, had some fun here. We had the no dogs allowed sticker that was a little try to have some humor in this thing. And maybe let's move to the next one. So then this is Kurt, and in this story, Kurt finds a wallet and debates bringing it back. It was kind of a weird story device I included. Something similar happened to me as a kid, and I gave money back, and I remember just thinking the reward I got was like really chintzy, and I should have just like tossed the wallet in a trash can and kept the cash. But but so I kind of used that as this weird framing device for this, and that got I didn't use that for the actual thing that ended up getting produced. But so this is him finding it, him getting evicted, because a lot of it was like finding places to rent can be kind of tough if you're an ex-felon. I mean, just anywhere. I mean, what with inflation, yada yada, you all know about that. Let's go to page 4. So this is like my favorite page, except maybe for page 1, they're kind of tied for me. Where Russ did, where he gets in and he was really pissed about the guy kind of, busting his balls out there, and or excuse me. But this upper left image, especially of Kurt with his raging heart biting the rib cage, I thought was pretty awesome. And you kind of see the starkness of the moral choice there in the bottom panel. And then if we can progress to, and I guess also I'll point out a little detail. These are some of Kurt's favorite writers up on the wall, which was I think like Ursula K. Le Guin and Vonnegut and maybe Bukowski. I don't know, someone else up on the wall there too. So Russ did such a great job on these, and he's actually like even better on the next, like the 32 pages. He's really outdone himself. So I'm excited to show you some sneak peeks into there. Though none of those are final, they're still going to get color graded and some other stuff. But let's move to page 5. And this was page 5. This was kind of the start of his like biography, and we're gonna flash forward through his life real fast. This was him finding the wallet and getting the chintzy reward. And I just thought it was funny to have a dog as a Cub Scout too. I don't know. I have a pretty basic kind of sense of humor, I suppose. But just another great job with Russ. I mean, it's actually a crazy panel, a lot of going on, and that's him like diving into the money like Scrooge McDuck up there in the upper left. And I don't know, it's I'm really glad that I was able to get this published with Iron City magazine, because it's kind of sad that it's not going to be part of the finished product thing we're putting together. So finding it at home here was real nice, so I do appreciate that. And I guess let's move to this is just a pencil of page 1. I should have taken a photo of what he's got, because it's actually really cool. It's got like rain and stuff over it, and it just looks great. So but it's still that's the one page that stayed pretty much the same. There are just a few little differences between the two versions, but it diverges widely from there. So we'll go to page 2. So this is Kurt getting into prison. I was in prison in Oregon, and it rains a lot there. So it's not just for a fact. And there he was getting processed and getting searched and all that good stuff, getting to his cell. And then I guess we'll move to page 3. Thank you. Oh, no, I got the wrong one in there. Let's just go to the next. Sorry, guys, I messed up. We'll go to page 4. This is Kurt meeting his cellie. This was based on a real guy who was my first cellie, who he got shot in the head. So he's missing like the front quarter of his brain. And it seemed to be some pretty important areas that he didn't have there, because it affected his behavior in very strange ways. It always made me think of that guy who had the metal bar in his head, and they learned all this stuff from him. Anyways, but yeah, he was my first cellie. And then I don't know, this is just a little fight scene in the bottom where they all got pepper sprayed. And whenever they pepper sprayed people, and this was in the intake facility, whenever they pepper sprayed people, you get in all the cells, and it was a very fun time. So and then we'll move to the next page. Maybe there's another one. Yeah. And then this is Kurt getting attacked by his cellie in his sleep. Yeah, there's words that'll go with all of these, but I don't know. I think just Russ did so great with all these pages. It's actually really difficult to draw a guy missing part of his head, and I don't know, a lot of it's supposed to be kind of anticlimactic to the story, because it's like it's weird, like, anyways, I don't know. But yeah, these are the first 5 pages. It's a whole 32-page thing. It's coming out in a couple weeks. And yeah, I just want to thank Iron City again for publishing it, and everyone for sitting through this talk about it. So thank you. Oh, I guess we have one more slide too. Thank you. That's my lovely wife who's off screen right now. Yeah, you can follow it on social media, and it's another little info thing there. So thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Jeff. And hello to Sophia, I think, there as well. It was great to see the work that you had that's featured in Iron City issue 6, as well as to see a little bit more what's coming up. And I can't wait to see just what happens to you in January with the next steps. This will be concluding the presentation portion of today's launch event. And we still have about 20 minutes then to reserve for some Q&A and open discussion. For anybody who does plan to sign up at this point, just wanted to remind you again that if you did pre-order the issue, it's going to be a few weeks before it is printed and sent and mailed. So be sure that you have your shipping address. Also, as a reminder too, we will be sending out an email following this event with a survey link. Please do complete that survey. It lets us know a little bit about what you thought of the event and also what you would like to see for the magazine, which is helpful too for the grant process, as well as for moving forward with the vision of the magazine. And then if you have any other questions, of course, reaching out to ironcitymagazine@gmail.com. So for everybody who is still here, I'm going to now share it to gallery view. And I believe everybody will be able to see you, and we'll kind of open it up for some questions. All right. Let's see here. Let me just make sure that this is what you can all see. All right. Awesome. Thank you. We have Jackie B in the chat here, who is our lovely poetry editor, letting me know that everyone can see our panelists now. And so I would like to see, are there any questions? You can use the Q&A function. You can put it in the chat. And panelists, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask each other questions too.
There is a question in the chat. Jess, did you see it? It says, thank you all. Do you send the magazine to all participating artists?
Excellent question. Thank you. I did not quite catch that one yet. We send the magazine 2 free copies to everybody who is published in the magazine. Mm-hmm. And so similar time frame too.
Where can we get your book? Jeff, where can we get your book?
I have a web domain I grabbed. I haven't really set it up. I've been pretty busy, but I just follow on social media. When I get that all set up, there'll be links on there, and then I'll yeah, thank you for the question too, Corey, and just nice to see you. I hope you feel better too. So
So you said my wife, did you say that? My wife in the background?
yeah. Do you want to come up here for a sec, Sophia? Sorry, I'm at my standing desk. She's knitting. This is Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. Sophia was my student when she was 18 years old, a gazillion years ago.
Thank you. No, yes.
She also works on the magazine. She's fantastic. Also writes, teaches English.
Thank you so much for the shout out. It's been amazing to read the fiction that everyone submits to, and to see all the work together for 7. So thank you everyone for presenting, and this is such a cool space. So Thank you.
We're so glad to have you too and all of the work that you've done, Sophia. We have some questions here. So I'm going to read the first one, which is for Rosemarie. What exactly led you to work with the people that you were with your poetry and yoga workshop and hear their poetry? I think it was also amazing that some of the poetry that you did share and is very touchable to the heart. This is from Taylor Jensen.
Thank you. There's a lot of poetry, actually. I was there for 8 months and I wrote a poem every month. It was kind of like journaling for me. I wrote a poem every week. I'm sorry. I would come home every Wednesday and start to process and write a poem because, I mean, when you're working in like a therapeutic capacity with people, they get really vulnerable really quickly and they share a lot of stories with you. I'm not a traditional therapist at all. So people tend to get really open with me really quickly. So I carried a lot and I needed to come home and write about that every Wednesday so that I could go back the next week and not be too sad. So this was sort of like a pared down version of the longer poems. I just kind of made like 6 of the poems into micro poems and then created the sequence, the sequence that I read today that's in Iron City called At the Reentry Center. I've known about the Reentry Center for a few years. I knew about it before the pandemic and was very interested in working there. I knew that Barrett Honors College at ASU had some kind of loose partnership with the Reentry Center. What led me there? When I was 7, 9, my neighbor went to prison, and that made me very sad. And I've had friends throughout my life who were formerly incarcerated peoples. I have a lot of friends now who are formerly incarcerated people. Just a population that has always been in my thoughts and my heart. And I have a lot of issues with the DOC. You know, I'm an activist who probably is an activist on way too many fronts. And so I get very angry about human rights violations, especially in our country. So it was something I'd wanted to do for a long time. I wanted to give the gift of poetry to people who felt like they didn't have a voice, felt like they hadn't been seen or heard, and didn't feel like maybe they had any talent. Because I believed that they did. So I felt really privileged to be able to see so many of the men blossom into storytellers and artists and, you know, to just have a rebirth, even if it was a small one, you know, on a Wednesday afternoon, to witness someone's rebirthing process, I think might be the greatest gift. I really have rarely experienced anything so profoundly touching. So loved him with my whole heart. And I will be back. I'm on a grant proposal that could take me to Perryville, the women's prison. Haven't heard about that yet. And if that does not go through, then I will hopefully be trying to sell my nonprofit services over at New Freedom, which is a large sort of like apartment complex for the formerly incarcerated in Phoenix, run by formerly incarcerated individuals. So I prefer to stay on the outside because I don't do well with the authority figures in the DOC. I know I look really sweet, but I have a bit of a temper. So I tend to be in conflict with them a lot and think that I can, you know, sort of advocate for people, and that doesn't work very well for me. So I probably should be in a safer space where I can maintain the work for a longer period of time.
So we have several follow-up questions to what you just said, and then for a few others. Just for time, I'm actually going to circle back to a few others, and then if we have a little bit more for anyone who wants to stay on a little longer, we can revisit some. I wanted to pose one to James. Let's see here. This is from Steph Jachter. You spoke out about the desire for art outreach, and I know you are a great dancer. Any thoughts about bringing that side of yourself to the inside?
Wow. Okay. Well, I am capable dancer, but multiple occasions, my life was threatened in prison because I was dancing. And I think the common line was, don't do that. White boys don't dance. If you do that again, we're going to kill you. So I don't think it's hard. I mean, I had friends that were Mexican nationals, and so in that culture, dancing, it's a part of the culture growing up. So it's not a minute thing. It's not, doesn't trigger as much homophobia as it does with whites in prison. But of course, partner dancing's hard. There are no women in prison, so it's really, I just can't see it happening. Although I've seen wonderful videos of line dancing where you'll have an entire prison yard in the Philippines, and they're all dancing together, doing like a line dance, Cupid shuffle or whatever. And so that can happen, but I'm probably too chicken to try it.
Thanks for sharing. Let's see here, and I want to have another one for Anne. It's from Stephen Henderson. Not to put you on the spot too much, but what is some of your vision and view for where Iron City will be going as it transitions to your leadership?
Well, one thing that I can say for certain is that we have talked internally about expanding the publication calendar. So we're interested in publishing it quarterly, at least in the coming year. And we're also exploring distribution channels for it. One thing that we have been talking about, again, internally, is distributing it through Amazon so that it would be more widely available. I know that the way that it's distributed now puts a tremendous amount of pressure on human resources. So we're looking at being able to do it through Amazon. So those are just a couple of the things. We haven't had any conversations or thoughts about changing the type of content or the process of soliciting it or any of those sorts of things. So mostly right now for us, it's logistics.
Thank you. Okay, and then it's in the chat, but just wanted to shout out to this too. Someone did also put the website for John, our cover artist too. So you can kind of just circle back and see that there as well if you do want to see more of his work. So then one of the other questions that was posed by Corey was speaking to what Rosemarie had mentioned. And so she asked, certainly incarcerated individuals encounter PTSD. I understand that many teachers in prisons do also. You touch on this in your processing remark. Can you say more? And then also asking for Laura. And really, I would open to anybody else who would like to speak on this too.
I mean, I went into prison with pretty severe PTSD. I'm a single mom and sole caregiver to a 24-year-old non-speaking individual with intellectual disabilities and a lot of physical disabilities. So pretty familiar with the landscape of complex PTSD. So that made me think that I was really prepared. My therapist told me otherwise. She was definitely worried. She said it's different to take on other people's trauma. And I didn't realize how different it was going to be, but it was. So, there's been a lot of crying, obviously, weekly processing through the writing, which has been immensely helpful. So that I could at least, as I like to say, burn off the top layer of trauma before layering more on top. So I think that, what we do probably with vulnerable populations, what we teach them, the kind of skills that we like to gift when we're there are just as important for us to use. So I really believe in complementary therapies. I really believe in dance and movement and yoga and art and poetry. And I use them all. I use every modality I can get my hands on. And, I think that, I use what I gift because it works for me. So I think, why wouldn't it work for others? So thank you.
I agree. I think that, type of release and decompression is so important. There are a lot of ups when you're inside, but there are also a lot of downs, and, hearing about things that have happened. Or one time we had a class, we were holding class, and there was a person in behavioral modification units, which are cages, right? In which you can, barely move in them. And someone was screaming out because they had just been pepper sprayed. My body, I was like, well, how do we continue going on with this happening in the corner? There are things like that that do have lasting effects. But I think, very similarly to what Rosemary said, our times when we come together and we share and we create and we talk things out, I find that so valuable. I love our staff meetings. And we often talk about, like, let's just get together, let's just hang out, because being around people who do something similar, I think, is really, really powerful. But I also feel like I gain so much every time I go inside. And so I think that outweighs any of the trauma, that you do kind of take on or hold on to in different ways. I really, when I think about it, I think about it holistically, very positively. I also just wanted to say a very quick side note. James, I was fascinated by your discussion of dance. So I've actually done research about masculinity, prison masculinities, and art creation. So I was so fascinated by what you had to say, this intersection with masculinities and race. Just absolutely fascinating. So thank you for your experiences.
Yeah, very welcome.
Hey, and then there was another question from our founder, Nat Volin, asking if we had an estimate on how many total contributors have been published over the last 7 years. I don't know. I was going to say, Corey, do you know what I was going to do is just a little estimated math. This would be good information to have. But we usually publish about 50 contributors, I would say, per issue. We'll say times 7. So that's 350, but probably several are repeated. So I'm going to say 200 to 300 people. That's my estimate. Yep. Yeah. And that's one thing that's so exciting too, is getting the feedback from those who receive their copy. And it's a process too, to see, which prisons do allow it in side or not. But those who do, and or to have their family members get to see that and have that physical hard copy is such a delight. And then to know too that the free version is online and accessible for people to read. It's pretty great. All right. Any other questions? I know we're here in the last few minutes. I don't think I missed any other questions. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again to all of our panelists. I'm so grateful for your time, for your, again, willingness to come and share not only with this webinar, but in the other ways that you are doing in the community. Big shout out again to Jackie and Corey, who have put in so much work. I know that they have spent many hours in the last several years, but in the last week especially, to make this particular issue come to life. So look out for that tomorrow. And again, just be well, continue to take care of yourselves in the way that I think Rosemary and Laura just mentioned. And until next time. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Mhm.